They waited for friends. But Deathworlders answered the call first. The Aegis Vanguard drifted quietly at the edge of the Korath expanse, a region of space known more for danger than for beauty. The stars here seemed distant and cold, as if they were merely pinholes in a black curtain. Inside the ship, the air hummed softly with the gentle vibrations of life support systems, the faint whine of engines, and the quiet footsteps of a crew on high alert. Captain Alina Mara stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the console screens. She had seen countless systems in her years of service, but the emptiness of this sector always made her uneasy. The human colony they were supposed to rescue lay deep within the expanse, a dot on the charts marked as Haven 17. The last transmission had come days ago, a routine check, in that was suddenly cut off mid-sentence. "We've been waiting too long, Captain," Lieutenant Ron said, his voice careful but tinged with tension. He adjusted his chair, eyes flicking between the radar and the communications console. "No reply for 72 hours, that's not normal." Alina's jaw tightened. "I know. That's why we're here. We can't wait any longer." The crew was small but experienced. Engineers, medics, navigators, and security, all trained to operate in extreme conditions. Yet none of them could shake the feeling that this mission was different. Danger was normal for them, but something about this silent, distant world felt wrong. Suddenly, the comms console flickered. A sharp beep cut through the quiet hum of the bridge. All heads turned as Lieutenant Ron moved quickly to the panel. "Captain, we're receiving a signal," he said, his voice tense. "It's weak, intermittent, but definitely something." Alina's heart skipped. She walked over, her boots making soft thuds on the metallic floor. "Patch it through," she ordered. Static filled the room first, then a voice, broken, distorted, almost unrecognizable. "Help, something wrong, Deathworld." The word hung in the air. "Deathworld?" Alina repeated, frowning. She had read reports of Deathworlds, planets so harsh that life was barely possible. Creatures that survived there were adapted to extreme conditions, often hostile to any intruders. Humanity had never colonized such places. "Can you clarify, Lieutenant?" Alina asked. "I'm trying, Captain," Ron replied, typing rapidly. "The signal is fragmented. But it sounds like the colony is in serious trouble. And wait, this isn't just human. There's another presence in the transmission." The bridge fell silent. A presence? What could it mean? "Another species," muttered Ensign Lyra, a young communications officer. "We weren't expecting," Alina held up her hand, cutting her off. "We weren't expecting a lot of things, Ensign. Right now, our priority is to locate the source and assess the danger. That's the mission. Everything else comes second." Ron adjusted the signal filters, bringing the fragmented voice into a clearer rhythm. The alien tones were deep, guttural, but they carried a sense of urgency, almost like a warning. "Captain, this isn't just a distress call. It's a warning. Whoever or whatever is there, they're telling us not to come," Ron said, his voice steady but tense. Alina's fingers brushed the console. "We don't turn back from duty, Lieutenant. Our people need help no matter what waits for us there." The ship's AI, Nara, interjected in her calm, neutral tone. "Captain Mara, sensors indicate that the planetary environment is highly unstable. Atmospheric pressure, toxic gases, violent weather patterns, conditions are lethal for humans without protective equipment. Proceeding without caution is not recommended." Alina nodded. "Thank you, Nara. We'll be cautious. That's an order." The crew spent the next few hours preparing. Engineers checked the environmental suits, loading extra oxygen tanks and filtration devices. Medics prepared emergency field kits, anticipating injuries from harsh terrain. Weapons and defensive equipment were calibrated, not for combat with humans, but for survival against unknown predators. Despite all the preparation, a quiet tension hung over the crew. None of them wanted to admit fear, but each knew that this mission might be the most dangerous they had ever faced. Finally, the Aegis Vanguard entered the planet's orbit. The view from the bridge was both beautiful and terrifying. Jagged mountains pierced through clouds of greenish fog. Lightning cracked across the sky and storms roared over vast plains that appeared barren, yet the sensors indicated movement. Life, strange and wild, was present, but it was not life that humans were used to. "Coordinates for the colony, Captain," Ron said, pointing to the holographic display. "It's isolated, surrounded by terrain that's impossible to traverse quickly." Alina took a deep breath. "Prepare a shuttle. We go down carefully, no rushing. Our priority is survival and locating the colonists." Hours later, the small shuttle broke through the dense atmosphere. The world below was a riot of colors and chaos. Acidic rain hissed as it hit rocks, and massive vines seemed to move on their own, curling and twisting as though alive. Every step was treacherous. As the shuttle descended, the crew spotted movement. Figures, tall, heavily built, humanoid but clearly not human, moved in the distance. Their skin was dark and leathery, adapted to the harsh conditions, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. These were the Deathworlders, creatures that had evolved to thrive where almost nothing else could. The shuttle landed near the edge of a cliff, giving the crew a wide view of the land. Elena stepped out first, her boots sinking slightly into the soft, shifting ground. She scanned the horizon, noting the Deathworlders watching from afar, their postures tense but not immediately hostile. Ron moved beside her, whispering, "They're waiting, but not for us, it seems. Something has them alert, almost nervous." Elena studied the creatures. "They're native to this planet, that much is clear, but the question is, will they help or hinder us? Either way, we need to move carefully. Remember, everyone, our priority is the colonists, nothing else." The team advanced, making their way toward the coordinates of the colony. Strange sounds echoed through the dense vegetation, high-pitched calls, roars, and the rustle of something moving too fast to see. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Suddenly, a sharp alarm went off on the shuttle. The storm was intensifying faster than predicted. The shuttle AI reported unstable ground due to seismic activity. "Captain Mara, the landing zone is no longer secure. Recommend evacuation to higher ground." Elena nodded. "Team move, watch your steps, stay together." As they climbed, the first signs of the colony appeared, a cluster of buildings battered by storms, their metal walls dented, smoke rising from broken machinery. But there was no one in sight. "Captain, look," Ensign Lyra said, pointing to a small figure on the roof. A human waving frantically, signaling for help. Relief washed over the crew, but it was short-lived. A loud, guttural roar echoed across the plateau. From the jagged cliffs, the Deathworlders emerged, not in attack, but in motion. They were moving toward the colony, faster than any human could run, their steps precise and powerful. "They're responding first," Ron whispered, "before we can reach them." Elena's mind raced. The humans needed help, yes, but the Deathworlders were stronger and faster, perfectly suited for the planet's deadly environment. If they reached the colony first, what would happen? The team quickened their pace, adrenaline surging. Elena felt the familiar mixture of fear and determination that always came in moments like this. Humanity had survived impossible odds before, relying not on raw strength, but on ingenuity, courage, and teamwork. She hoped that would be enough. As the humans reached the edge of the colony, the Deathworlders were already there, confronting the dangers of the storm and the shifting terrain with ease. But even in this moment, Elena noticed something remarkable. The Deathworlders paused, not in aggression, but in calculation. They observed the humans carefully, recognizing that these fragile creatures were stepping into a world that would kill them if they misstepped. Elena raised her hand in a cautious greeting. The gesture was simple, almost primitive, but it was understood. They came in peace, seeking only to save their people. The moment stretched, charged with tension. The storm raged around them, the alien terrain threatening to swallow them whole. And yet in that instant, two very different species, the fragile humans and the powerful Deathworlders, stood facing the same danger. The humans had waited for friends to arrive. But on this Deathworld, the answer came in a form they could never have expected. And for the first time, Elena Mara felt the weight of something bigger than fear, a challenge, one that would test everything humanity believed about survival, courage, and the strength of its mind. Above them, lightning split the sky. Below, the planet itself seemed to breathe, alive with danger and opportunity. And somewhere in the chaos, the colonists awaited salvation. The humans and Deathworlders stood facing each other in the storm-lashed clearing near the colony. Rain hissed against their suits, mixing with the acidic mist rising from the ground. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating the Deathworlders' towering forms. Their muscles flexed beneath leathery skin, adapted to withstand the planet's harsh winds and shifting terrain. They were dangerous but not immediately hostile. Captain Elena Mara kept her hand raised, a gesture of peace. "We're here to help the colonists," she called over the roar of the storm. "We don't want conflict." The Deathworlders' leader stepped forward, a massive figure with eyes that glowed faintly in the storm. His voice was deep and commanding, yet surprisingly calm. This world is unforgiving. Humans, you are fragile. Why have you come? Elena met his gaze without fear. Because our people are in danger. We can survive, but they cannot survive alone. We will not leave them behind. There was a pause, almost as if the world itself was holding its breath. The leader of the Deathworlders studied the humans, their uniforms soaked, their movements cautious but determined. Slowly, he nodded. Then you will follow our way. The colony is unsafe. We will lead. The humans exchanged uncertain glances. They were strong, trained, and resourceful, yet these creatures had clearly adapted to conditions that would kill ordinary humans. Still, Elena sensed a chance. Humanity's strength had never been in brute force. It was in strategy, intelligence, and creativity. She knew that if they could work together, they might survive this planet's many dangers. Understood, she said. We follow your lead, but we move as a team. No one is left behind. The Deathworlder leader's glowing eyes flicked over the crew. Agreed, but survive we must. With that, they began the trek toward the colony. The Deathworlders moved swiftly, their long strides carrying them over uneven ground that made the humans struggle. Elena noticed the way they avoided certain plants and rocks, as if the planet itself whispered warnings to them. Every step humans took required careful calculation and ingenuity. Lieutenant Ron adjusted his helmet's visor, scanning the terrain. Captain, some of these plants are releasing toxic spores when disturbed. We need to tread lightly or risk respiratory distress. Elena nodded. Then we adapt. Use your suits, but move carefully. Watch the ground ahead and signal if anything moves. The journey was grueling. Acid rain mixed with mud, turning the path into a slippery hazard. Thunder shook the cliffs above, and strange cries echoed from unseen creatures in the distance. Despite the danger, the humans pressed on, relying on clever improvisation. They reinforced their boots with extra grips, linked their safety lines, and used portable shields to deflect falling debris. As they neared the colony, the humans got their first clear view of the disaster. Buildings were partially collapsed, roofs torn away, and walls scorched from lightning strikes. Smoke rose from overturned machinery. The colonists had clearly fought to survive, but exhaustion was visible even from a distance. A small group of colonists huddled together, waving frantically. "Help! Over here!" one called. The Deathworlders moved forward effortlessly, scaling broken structures and dodging hazards as if they were born on the planet. Humans followed more cautiously, but Elena noticed something remarkable. The Deathworlders were careful not to harm the humans. There was recognition in their actions. This fragile species had courage. When the first human reached the colonists, they were trembling, soaked through, but alive. "Captain, everyone's alive, but it's bad. The storm is worse than we expected. We've lost power to the main shelter and supplies are limited," one of them explained. Elena nodded. "Stay calm, we'll get everyone to safety." She turned to the Deathworlder leader. "We can coordinate. You have speed and strength. We have tools and planning. Together we can get them out before the storm worsens." The Deathworlder considered her words. "Show me your tools." "Show me your plan." Elena quickly explained their approach. They would use portable bridges and ladders to traverse broken sections, deploy temporary shelters with environmental controls, and ration supplies carefully. The Deathworlders observed silently, occasionally nodding as though the humans' cleverness impressed them. Then disaster struck. A tremor shook the ground violently. The humans were thrown off balance, and a large chunk of the cliff above began to crumble. Ron shouted, "Everyone brace!" The Deathworlders reacted instantly. They lifted heavy debris with their bare hands, holding rocks and broken beams in place long enough for the humans and colonists to move to safety. Elena watched in awe. These creatures were incredible, but they were also capable of cooperation. They understood instinctively that survival depended on more than just strength. It depended on coordination. The humans and Deathworlders began moving as a single unit. Humans directed, calculated, and repaired. Deathworlders lifted, carried, and cleared the path. Slowly, the colony was evacuated toward a safer plateau, away from collapsing buildings and the worst of the storm. Hours passed, and exhaustion settled over both species. Sweat, rain, and mud coated everyone, but the humans pressed on. Their endurance was driven not by biology, but by determination, adaptability, and courage. Even when the Deathworlders began to recognize that humans were physically weaker, they also saw that humans never gave up, never panicked, and always found a solution. Finally, the group reached a wide ledge. high above the main colony. The plateau was relatively stable, and the storm, though still fierce, was less lethal here. Portable shelters were deployed, and emergency supplies were distributed. Colonists began to recover, grateful for the combined effort of humans and Deathworlders. Elena took a moment to survey the scene. Humans and Deathworlders worked side by side, coordinating actions without verbal commands at times, relying on observation and trust. It was a small miracle, the kind of teamwork that defined humanity. "Captain," Ron said quietly, "look at them. They respect us in their own way." Elena nodded. "Yes, not because we are strong, but because we solve problems. We survive even when the odds are against us. That's something even these Deathworlders cannot ignore." As night fell, the storm gradually lessened, revealing strange bioluminescent plants that illuminated the plateau in soft, eerie colors. The Deathworlders were quiet, watching the humans move among the colonists. One of them approached Elena. "You have skills different from ours," the leader said. "Fragile you are, yet dangerous, clever, brave, and persistent. These qualities, they matter here." Elena felt a mix of pride and relief. "Thank you. We have much to learn from you, too." "Together, we can survive this planet." The Deathworlder leader nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but the planet tests all who enter. Strength alone is not enough. Only those who adapt, only those who think and endure survive." Elena glanced at her team. Each one was tired, battered, but alive. They had survived the storm, learned to cooperate with an alien species, and begun the first steps toward rescuing the colony. Her heart swelled with a quiet determination. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and had always found a way. That night, as the wind howled outside, Elena kept watch. She thought of the colonists, the Deathworlders, and her own crew. The planet was harsh, unpredictable, and deadly, but it had also revealed something important. Humans were more than fragile flesh and bone. Their ingenuity, courage, and teamwork were weapons just as powerful as claws or strength. Somewhere deep in the storm, unseen predators lurked. Some unknown forces were still testing the colony, the humans, and the Deathworlders alike. But Elena knew one thing with certainty: humanity would not falter. They would survive, adapt, and continue to fight. In the distance, a Deathworlder patrol returned from scouting. They carried fragments of broken structures, maps of hazards, and warnings of shifting terrain. Together with the humans, they began planning the next phase. Not just survival, but moving the colonists to long-term safety, and perhaps learning more about the mysteries of this Deathworld. Elena knew that the journey ahead would be far more dangerous than the initial rescue. Yet she also knew something else. In this place where only the strongest and most clever survived, humans were proving they belonged. Not because of brute strength, but because of the mind, the heart, and the unyielding will to protect one another. And so, under the eerie light of alien flora, the humans and Deathworlders worked through the night. Every action mattered. Every decision could mean survival or death. But as dawn approached, there was hope, the kind of hope born not from miracles, but from courage, intelligence, and determination. Humanity had faced the Deathworld, and they had survived. The night had passed with uneasy calm. The storm that had ravaged the colony lessened only to a distant rumble, but the planet itself seemed restless. Jagged mountains shivered in the wind, and strange, groaning noises echoed across the plateau as though the ground itself were alive. Captain Elena Mara surveyed the scene from the temporary shelter, noting the tired but determined faces of her crew. They had survived the first onslaught of the planet's fury, and the colonists had been moved to safer ground, but the night had shown them a simple truth. This world tested everyone who entered. Lieutenant Ron knelt by a map spread on a portable hollow table, tracing paths through the dangerous terrain. "Captain, our supplies are sufficient for now, but the next storm system is moving fast. We can't stay here long without proper shelter and food." Elena nodded, rubbing her temples. "Agreed. And this planet, it's more than just storms. The flora, the fauna, it's alive in ways we haven't fully understood yet. We need to keep moving, or we risk getting trapped." From outside, a Deathworlder patrol returned, carrying samples of jagged plants and cracked rocks. Their leader approached Elena. "These are unstable. The plants react to movement and sound. Many are poisonous, some dangerous in ways you humans would not survive." Elena studied the samples carefully. "We'll need to avoid contact, but if these plants can respond to movement, perhaps they have weaknesses. We can test them safely." The Deathworlder leader regarded her curiously. You are clever, little human, fragile yet clever. But cleverness alone will not save you here. Elena smiled faintly. It won't, but combined with courage and endurance, it might. The morning light revealed more of the planet's terrifying landscape. Torn metal from the colony scattered across the plateau like debris in a battlefield. Smoke rose from scorched earth where lightning had struck during the storm. Beyond the safe zone, the terrain dropped into jagged valleys filled with writhing vines and strange, luminescent fungi that pulsed softly. The air was thick, heavy with spores and the scent of ozone. Elena gathered the crew and colonists. We move today, she said. The Deathworlders will guide us through safer routes, but every step is risky. Stay alert. Observe everything. Our goal is to reach a stable zone, build a proper shelter, and secure supplies. Survival depends on preparation. The humans followed the Deathworlders, learning quickly how to navigate the treacherous terrain. Every rock and plant seemed alive, reacting to movement. The humans' protective suits kept them safe from the worst toxins, but the Deathworlders moved effortlessly, sensing danger long before it became a threat. As they descended into a narrow valley, a sudden movement caught Elena's eye. A massive plant with vine-like tendrils whipped toward them with alarming speed. The humans froze for a split second, but instinct kicked in. "Ron, deploy the shields," Elena shouted. Portable energy shields activated, deflecting the tendrils. Sparks flew as the acidic plant recoiled, damaged but not destroyed. The Deathworlders leapt with incredible agility, severing additional vines before they could strike. "Fragile yet capable of thinking quickly," the Deathworlder leader said. "Your species surprises me." Elena swallowed. "We learn fast, and we survive faster." For the next few hours, the team navigated valleys filled with hostile flora. Strange creatures lurked in shadows, small, swift, and covered in chitinous armor. While the Deathworlders used strength to clear the path, the humans relied on strategy. Ron improvised traps to redirect predators, Ensign Lyra created temporary markers to signal hazards, and the engineers fashioned lightweight bridges to cross deep fissures. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a massive chasm. Across it lay a safer plateau, relatively stable and protected from storms. But the way was blocked by a twisting forest of alien vegetation, thick and pulsating. Elena scanned the terrain. "We can't go through." "Too risky, we need a plan." Ron frowned, thinking quickly. "We can use controlled energy pulses to temporarily stun the plants. It won't destroy them, but it will give us a safe path. Then we move quickly, 2 teams in parallel, humans on one side, Deathworlders on the other." The Deathworlder leader nodded approvingly. "Clever, you are not weak as I thought. You have patience and calculation. These will help you survive this world." The plan was set. The humans activated their pulse devices, sending precise energy bursts at the thick vegetation. Vines and stems shivered and collapsed momentarily, creating narrow corridors. The Deathworlders surged through these openings, their massive forms slicing through obstacles effortlessly. Humans followed cautiously, using ropes and temporary bridges to cross gaps and avoid hidden traps. It was exhausting. Sweat mixed with rain and mud. Every step demanded vigilance. Every miscalculation could lead to injury or worse. Yet the humans pressed on, driven by determination. They had already seen what Deathworlders could do, and while they respected their strength, they knew their own advantages: strategy, adaptation, and cooperation. By late afternoon, they reached the edge of the plateau. The humans and Deathworlders paused, catching their breath. Below them, a network of glowing fungi spread across the valley like a living river. Some vines twitched as if aware of their presence. Suddenly, a tremor shook the ground, stronger than any before. Rocks tumbled, and a nearby fissure widened, sending poisonous gas spilling upward. The humans scrambled to protect the colonists. Portable suits filtered the gas, but the Deathworlders were unaffected, moving with natural ease. Elena realized then that the planet itself was an active threat, not just its flora and fauna. Every movement had consequences. Every action could trigger disaster. She took a deep breath and spoke to the group. "This planet isn't just harsh, it's alive. It tests us at every step. We must think, adapt, and survive as one. The Deathworlders have strength. We have strategy. Together, we can endure anything." The rest of the afternoon was a test of endurance. Humans improvised shelters from fallen rocks and debris to shield against sudden rain and acidic mist. The Deathworlders provided guidance, teaching the humans how to read subtle cues in the environment, how the movement of plants indicated instability, how patterns of wind predicted storms, and how sounds revealed predators hidden from view. Through it all, Elena noticed something remarkable. The Deathworlders were learning from the humans too. They observed their quick thinking, the clever traps, the coordination in small teams. While strength had kept them alive for generations, ingenuity was a new element, and one they respected. As night approached, they reached the safest plateau yet. It was flat, sheltered, and free from immediate hazards. The humans set up temporary housing, while the Deathworlders patrolled the perimeter. Fires burned brightly in safe containment zones, and the colonists began to recover, their spirits lifted by the combined efforts of humans and Deathworlders. Elena sat for a moment, exhausted but determined. She reflected on what they had achieved, survival against odds that would have crushed ordinary humans. They had navigated poisonous forests, avoided predatory creatures, crossed treacherous terrain, and endured a planet that seemed to conspire against them at every step. Lieutenant Ron joined her. "Captain, I've been thinking the Deathworlders respect our cleverness, but they've never seen humanity at full strength. If the planet tests us further, we might be able to turn the advantage to our favor, not with brute force, but with planning." Elena smiled faintly. "Exactly. That's how humans survive, not by being the strongest, but by thinking, observing, and adapting faster than the danger." The night passed uneventfully, but the humans knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The planet would test them again, perhaps in ways even the Deathworlders had never faced. Strange noises echoed from the valley below, creatures moving in patterns too swift to track. Shadows shifted unnaturally in the light of the bioluminescent fungi. Every sound, every tremor reminded them that the trial was not over. During a brief meeting around the controlled fire, Elena outlined the plan for the next day. "We move farther inland, secure water sources, and establish stronger shelters. The storm systems are unpredictable, and the terrain is unstable. We'll need to work together more than ever. Humans and Deathworlders, this is not just survival, it's learning to endure as one team." The Deathworlder leader regarded her silently for a long moment, then nodded. "You are clever, persistent. You may yet survive here long enough to see what others cannot." The words were both warning and praise. Elena knew they would face harsher challenges. Storms stronger than before, predators more cunning, and perhaps the planet itself testing them in ways they could not anticipate. But she also knew something vital. Humans had survived impossible odds before, relying not on raw strength but on intelligence, creativity, and unyielding determination. As dawn approached, the humans and Deathworlders prepared to move again. Every step mattered. Every decision could mean life or death. But together, they were beginning to master the planet's deadly challenges. And though the Deathworlders had arrived first, humanity was proving that cleverness and endurance could be as powerful as strength and instinct. Elena looked at her crew, tired but resolute. "This planet wants to test us," she said softly. "But we will not fail, we will adapt, we will endure, and when it is done, we will prove that humanity belongs even on the deadliest worlds." In the distance, the first rays of sunlight pierced the clouds, illuminating the alien landscape. The humans and Deathworlders moved forward, side by side, ready to face whatever the planet had in store next. The trial of survival had begun in earnest, and humanity was ready to show that even on a Deathworld, brains and courage could match brute force. The sun had barely risen over the jagged peaks of the Deathworld when Captain Elena Mara stood at the edge of the plateau, watching the valley below. The terrain stretched endlessly, twisting rivers of glowing fungi, tangled forests of carnivorous plants, and the occasional shadow of massive creatures moving silently in the mist. The humans had learned to move cautiously, but the planet's dangers were far from over. Lieutenant Ron knelt beside the hollow table, reviewing the maps they had collected over the past 2 days. "Captain, our sensors indicate unusual readings in the Central Valley," he said, pointing to a series of pulsing energy spikes on the display. "They don't match any natural phenomena. Something is alive in a mechanical way." Elena's brow furrowed. "Mechanical, you mean a machine?" Ron nodded. "Yes, and it's large. It could be automated defense systems or ancient alien technology. Either way, it's dangerous." "We need a plan." The Deathworlder leader, standing silently behind them, observed the humans' discussion. His glowing eyes narrowed. This place has always tested all who enter. Your species has survived storms and predators, clever as you are, but you may not survive this. The machines you speak of, they destroy everything. Alina straightened, meeting his gaze. Then we won't be destroyed. We adapt, we plan, that's what humans do, and we'll do it with your help. The Deathworlder studied her for a long moment. Very well. But the trial will be harder than anything you've faced. Do not underestimate it. With that, the combined teams, humans and Deathworlders, began their descent into the central valley. The ground was uneven, littered with jagged rocks and pulsating alien plants. Every step required attention. One mistake could trigger a trap or expose them to a predator. As they advanced, the energy spikes grew stronger, and the air began to hum with a low vibration. Suddenly, a column of light shot upward from the valley floor. From the glow, a massive structure emerged, partially buried in the earth, an alien war machine, dormant for centuries but now awakening. Its surfaces shimmered with strange metal alloys, and mechanical limbs unfolded with precise, threatening movements. Alina took a deep breath. All right, everyone, stay calm, observe first. Learn how it moves before we act. This is not a fight we can win with strength alone. The Deathworlder leader stepped forward, testing the ground near the machine. It senses intruders, movement, sound. It will attack anything it considers a threat. Ron quickly scanned the structure. Captain, it seems to follow patterns, maybe programmed logic. If we can predict the sequence, we can manipulate it, redirect it, or disable it temporarily. Alina nodded. Then that's our approach. We rely on brains, not brute force. Humans and Deathworlders, we work together. You provide strength and speed, we provide planning and strategy. The first test came quickly. A mechanical arm lashed out toward the group, attempting to strike. The Deathworlders moved with lightning reflexes, avoiding the blow, while the humans quickly noted the timing and angle of the strike. 2 seconds between movements, Ron shouted. We can use that window to pass safely. Alina led the team, timing their steps to the machine's rhythm. They moved in careful coordination, humans guiding the colonists, Deathworlders clearing obstacles and absorbing the force of minor attacks. As they advanced closer, they discovered the machine had multiple limbs, each capable of independent motion, and small drones patrolled the area. The humans quickly improvised. One team set up reflective barriers to confuse the drones, while another team created noise generators to lure mechanical limbs away from the path. The Deathworlders, for all their strength, could not anticipate the machine's logic, but they could act instantly to defend or carry humans out of danger. Slowly, inch by inch, they pushed forward. At one point, a massive mechanical claw struck the ground, sending a shockwave through the valley. Rocks and debris flew toward the humans and colonists. Alina shouted, "Brace yourselves, use the shields." Portable energy shields activated, absorbing the impact. Colonists clung to each other, while humans and Deathworlders moved strategically, using fallen debris as cover. Even in the chaos, the humans' cleverness turned danger into opportunity. Ron noticed a pattern. The machine paused for a fraction of a second before each strike, likely to recalibrate sensors. "Captain, we can exploit that pause," he yelled. Alina nodded. "Exactly. Everyone follow my lead. Timing and coordination will get us through." The team pressed forward using this rhythm, advancing toward the machine's core. Small victories encouraged them. A few of the drones were disabled by clever human devices, and the mechanical limbs were lured into traps the humans improvised on the fly. But the machine was far from defeated. It adapted quickly, altering its patterns as if learning from the humans' actions. Alina realized they needed something more than reaction. They needed a plan to outsmart it completely. She gathered her team behind a ridge away from the machine's sensors. "We've seen how it moves. We've tested its reactions. Now we set the trap. Humans, you'll handle the logic and planning. Deathworlders, you'll provide the muscle and speed. Timing must be perfect." The Deathworlder leader tilted his head. "Your plan relies on prediction and coordination. If you fail, all perish." Alina's voice was steady. "We will not fail. Humanity survives because we think, adapt, and endure. Together, we can turn this trial to our advantage." Over the next hour, they prepared. Ropes were tied across unstable ground, reflective surfaces were arranged to misdirect sensors, and noise generators were placed strategically. The humans studied every movement of the machine, predicting its next strike and planning multiple contingencies. When the trap was ready, the group moved as one. The Deathworlders charged ahead, drawing the machine's attention, while the humans guided colonists along hidden paths. Timing was crucial. A single misstep could trigger the machine's full offensive. Mechanical limbs swiped through the air, drones fired energy pulses, and the ground shook with every strike. Yet humans used every second of delay, every pattern observed, to move safely. The Deathworlders reacted instantly, their reflexes saving humans from blows that would have crushed them. Finally, the humans reached the core control unit of the machine. Using portable hacking devices and adaptive software, they began to disrupt its programming. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the machine roared in frustration. Its movements became erratic, its attacks slower, and its coordination failed. Alina watched as the Deathworlders seized the opportunity. They pushed mechanical limbs into harmless positions, blocking the drones and guiding colonists to safety. Slowly, methodically, the combined efforts of humans and Deathworlders disabled the machine entirely. The valley fell silent. The storm, the mechanical threat, and the restless planet seemed to pause in acknowledgement. Humans and Deathworlders stood together, breathing heavily, soaked in sweat and rain, but victorious. The Deathworlder leader approached Alina, his glowing eyes fixed on her. "You have adapted, you have endured. Cleverness, courage, endurance, these are qualities I respect. Your species is stronger than I imagined." Alina nodded, exhausted but proud. "We survived together, not because of strength, but because of teamwork, planning, and trust." The humans and Deathworlders began assisting the colonists further, clearing debris and stabilizing shelters. For the first time, the Deathworlders seemed to recognize the humans as equals, partners in survival rather than fragile strangers. As night fell, the team gathered around small, controlled fires. The valley, once a battlefield between life, humans, and alien machines, now felt like a temporary haven. The humans had proven themselves, clever, adaptable, and persistent. Even on a death world, their minds were as lethal as any muscle. Alina reflected on the day's events. The trial had been more difficult than any they had faced. Storms, predators, and now an ancient alien machine had tested their courage, intelligence, and endurance. And yet humanity had not only survived, it had earned respect. Lieutenant Ron spoke quietly beside her. "Captain, they won't forget this. The Deathworlders respect our strategy. We've shown them that humans are not fragile. We can survive anything if we think and work together." Alina looked at the glowing horizon. "Yes, but the planet will test us again. We've faced the machine, but there are more challenges ahead. Stronger storms, deeper dangers, and maybe more remnants of the civilization that left this place behind. But we'll face them, together." The Deathworlders kept watch around the perimeter, silent but vigilant. The humans moved among the colonists, checking for injuries and reinforcing shelters. It was not a victory of strength alone. It was a victory of adaptability, intelligence, and teamwork. Alina knew the next day would bring more challenges, perhaps even deadlier than the one they had just overcome. But she also knew that humanity had proven something critical. They could endure the impossible. Their cleverness, courage, and determination had turned a world of death into a place where hope still survived. And somewhere in the heart of the valley, the ancient machine remained dormant, its systems sparking occasionally as if pondering the encounter. It had been defeated today, not by force, but by mind and will, the kind of ingenuity that defined humans. Alina closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting exhaustion wash over her. "We will survive," she whispered. "We will endure. And humanity will continue to rise, no matter the challenge." The night was long, filled with the soft hum of machinery, distant roars, and the whispers of the wind. But for the first time, humans and Deathworlders alike could rest, even briefly, knowing that the trial of survival had been met and overcome.